I think everyone's doing okay. I don't know if anyone is doing as well as they wish they were at this stage of a bull market, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, I don't know.
I don't know if you can call this a bull market. I mean, BTC is doing well. I mean, look at the top 50 names by market cap year-to-date performance. I was just looking at this a few days ago, and Bitcoin's up 40%. ETH has now given back most of its year-to-date gains. I think it's up 10, 15% year-to-date. Solana's about in line. BNB has outperformed, and then it just drops off drastically. There's a few other names in the top 50 that have kind of kept up or maybe outperformed Bitcoin by a little bit, but most of them are down year-to-date. I mean, you're talking about like a 50% plus performance spread between BTC and I think alts broadly, and you definitely feel that in the sentiment.
One thing I want to start with, I have to say this. Congrats. I don't know if I should say congratulations, but you did get your money back from FTX, millions of dollars. How did that, do you have the money back? Let's start with that.
Yeah, sold the claim at the end of November of last year. I can't disclose the price that we paid for it or the price that we received for it, but got a price that we were happy with. And if you sort of dug around in publicly available information to see what claims that were big were going for about that at that time, that's kind of what we got. Gave all our investors that wanted their money back the opportunity to get their money back. The large majority of the capital stayed in the fund. And we got the money back in early December and deployed it into the market. The market's up since then. So, it's a good outcome. Certainly a much better outcome than we were expecting in the first, months after FTX happened.
Right.
I think, as you know, the FTX bankruptcy sort of went a lot better than what people were expecting in the initial weeks and months after the bankruptcy, in terms of the total recoveries. And we were a beneficiary of that, sold the claim, and really haven't paid all that much attention to it since then. Some attention, but I'm not involved, don't have exposure to it really anymore. So I will accept the congratulations. And it was sort of a career near-death experience type of deal. And sometimes you got choppy laps around the track, and then you come out the other side of it, and the sweet wouldn't be as sweet without the sour and all that fun stuff. So
what happened? So you actually got to participate then in the bull run. If you got your money back in December, for the people that didn't, I read that there's $16 billion about to hit the market. So if you would have waited, right, you just would have gotten your money now, or when do they get their money back?
Yeah, so there is that 16 billion number that is out there. It's a little more complicated than that in terms of how much capital is going to like people are seeing that number and they're saying, okay, this is going to be a huge tailwind for crypto prices because all of these FTX creditors are going to get their dollars back. They're going to get dollars back from the FTX estate, and they want to get crypto exposure with those dollars. They're going to take the dollars and plow it into crypto. Some amount of that is going to happen. Multiple billions of dollars, I think, of that is going to happen. But the timing is a little off from what people are saying. I think it's either going to be end of this year or more likely beginning of next year. There's a convenience class for all creditors that are $50,000 or under. There's a convenience class, and they get, I can't remember, a little over 100 cents on the dollar back, I think, in aggregate at petition date pricing. And that will happen at the end of Q4, beginning of Q1. I think that number is like 1.3 billion total. And then for all of the sort of regular class creditors, that should happen maybe end of Q1 of next year, could leak into Q2. Bankruptcy timing stuff is like notoriously hard to kind of get your head around. But the main issue with that is that a very significant number of FTX creditors sold their claim,
Right.
like we sold our claim, and they sold the claim to distressed hedge funds that buy bankruptcy claims for a living. These are very big, sophisticated TradFi firms, and that money is not going to go into the crypto market. That's not what happens. Like when XYZ huge hedge fund that buys bankruptcy claims all day gets their money from the FTX bankruptcy, they're not going to go plow it into the crypto market. They are going to go do something else in traditional finance with it, go put it into another bankruptcy, or if it's a closed-end fund, they're going to give it back to investors. And what we don't know at this point is like what percent of the FTX claims have been sold to distressed funds.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get some more color on that, or maybe that number's out there and I just haven't seen it because I'm not paying like crystal clear attention to it anymore. But I think that somewhere, if I would guess, I would say probably 50% of the FTX claims were sold to creditors or sold to distressed funds that are not going to put that money back into the market. So that 16 billion number that people are throwing around, I would just temper those expectations meaningfully and also push the timeline out to the right some. And the way I've been thinking about it is it's going to be some multi-billion-dollar tailwind that will be in the first half of next year, basically.
So added to the list of things which are both bullish and bearish. That's what we've been kind of wading through all of this year. It's like Bitcoin, ETH at all-time highs. Is that bullish? It's kind of bearish. We've already had the move. We're in this like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a parallel universe we've entered where it's impossible to tell. Crypto always has some level of uncertainty. Now it's been turned up to the max. And you published a 3-part series about why crypto has been so strange this cycle, right? No cycle plays out exactly like we've had, but there are always some similarities. Even with each year, there's kind of similarities on how things move. Bitcoin will move first, then altcoins, and one sector will do this. It's all been thrown out the window this year. You published that, and it got more traction than anything else you've ever published, right? You've been on Twitter, I think, as long as me, 6-7 years diving into this stuff, all the absurd stuff that's happened. You write this report. It's a 3-part series. It got more traction than anything else. Why do you think that is?
I think I was just able to observe, just having done this a long time, talking to a lot of different people in the crypto ecosystem. I think different parts of the crypto ecosystem. I think I was just able to capture, like I just call it like I see it. I think to the extent I have a reputation in crypto, I think part of my reputation is I just call a spade a spade. I just observe and report basically and try not to sugarcoat things too much. And if I'm super excited or bulled up about something, that's going to come out in the way that I talk about something. And if I'm worried about something or if I think that there's risks that are present that people are not understanding, that's going to come out in my writings and in my voice as well too. And the 3 pieces that I think it was February 1st, March 1st, and then September 1st. February 1st was a lack of pretense that any of this shit does anything or will ever do anything. And I wrote that just observing the way that 2023 unfolded and the attitudes that I was seeing from the various groups of investors in crypto that were approaching this market in a way that was very different than prior cycles and in years prior. And it was like 2023, if you believe in the sort of 4-year cycles, it was like 2023 was supposed to be 2019, but 2023 wasn't anything like 2019. And the attitudes that the market had moving into, like I said, I wrote that in February of this year. So this is like the beginning of the year, right when we got the ETFs. And a lot of this was predicated on my view that the Bitcoin ETFs gave Bitcoin a free walk to all-time highs. That it's just like the crypto market wasn't really going to have to do much work to get Bitcoin to to new all-time highs, the ETFs were basically just going to take care of that, which that obviously did turn out to be true shortly thereafter. And, and it was just, I put it out. It really, really resonated with people. It was an aspect of financial nihilism, which was a topic that I had touched on in my writings historically. And so then the next month I wrote this financial nihilism follow-up piece. And then that thing went super crazy. That got picked up by traditional mainstream media, other like traditional financial blogs reposted it. The New York Times reached out to me and asked me to write an op-ed about financial nihilism, which I haven't told anybody this. They reached out, and I was like very torn about whether or not to like write an op-ed about financial nihilism to the New York Times, because like it on one hand, like I feel like it's probably good if more people sort of understand this trend that I think is dominant. But then on the other hand, it's like, fuck the New York Times, right? So I told this lady I was going to do it, and then I just ghosted her, and because I just like was like I'm like not going to write something in the New York Times. So, but anyways, got a ton of traction, and again, it just I think really captured what a lot of people were feeling both in the crypto markets and broadly in their day-to-day life. And one of the main things I bring up in that financial nihilism piece is the explosion of gambling, sports gambling, online gambling in America and globally. But I mean, in America, this is a huge thing, and it is immediately adjacent to crypto and alts and meme coins, and competes for capital with alts and meme coins. So
I want to quote actually something from that first piece before we get into now where we are and how the hell to navigate it. But you said back then, you said there seems to be a much larger collective embrace of the lack of pretense within crypto going into the cycle. Said differently, the ratio of our expectations to market cap feels like it's the lowest it's been in 6 years. The root cause of this will take some time to unpack, which I'll do next month. But suffice to say, if I'm right, this cycle will get truly wacky.
Yeah.
And it's put us it's put us in the spot where Bitcoin's it's been playing between 70K to 60K. So by all metrics, Bitcoin has succeeded. And it looks like it'll probably continue to do well, even in the face of crypto being uncertain, not a lot of new retail entrants. Like Bitcoin's still it's almost won already. I don't want to, be complacent about it, but it has. It's won.
I genuinely agree with that.
Yeah, Continue to get these flows from the ETF. It's been the most successful ETF. Wall Street's here, all these things. At the same time, we had almost no new retail entrants this year. Whether or not people agree with that, I think it's true. You can see it on Twitter follower accounts. You can see it in the sectors of alts that done well, how long they did well. So kind of drilling into that a little bit more before we get to where we are now. Why is it different this cycle? Like that is kind of a complex thing where you can say more people agreed that this is all just gambling, or is it because of how alts performed the past two cycles where they always go up multiples, they always come down 90%? Is it everyone just kind of expecting that to happen again, or is it truly because we just haven't had a breakout of enough apps doing well or enough mainstream adoption? Like what's the root cause?
So the two things that I would mainly ascribe it to is first, 3 up, 1 down. You're familiar with the meme 3 up, 1 down, right? Bitcoin's the best performing asset class of all asset classes for 3 years in a row. And then the fourth year, it's by far the worst performing asset. And then you start over again, and we're like in the fourth stage of that or whatever. And if you believe in that, then that means that 2024 is a good year for Bitcoin. It is part of the 3 up year, right? And historically, that means that pockets of alts will outperform Bitcoin. And so you sort of start with that. And there's an assumption around that. So people just go, 2024 is a good year to be in the casino.
Yeah.
And then you walk into the casino and you go, okay, boys, what casino games are we playing? And you look around and you're like, okay, well, it is a little light in actual use cases. It's a little light in actual believability. You know, you and I were both around in 2019. That was 5 years ago. And a lot of this stuff is like less believable now than it was 5 years ago, because 5 years ago, at least you had there was a naivety, and there was still so many unanswered questions, and there was optimism and naivety that went with that, with all the uncertainty, right? You fast forward 5 years, and we've seen a lot more. There's been a lot more changes to infrastructure, and you've had 5 more years for tens of thousands of people to iterate on different projects, and all of these investors to look at the iterations of this and invest and decide sort of like what that whole market structure looks like. And so we know a lot more now, and you kind of walked in 2024 and you go, well, this is just not looking like all that compelling. Like it just does not look that compelling. And so that's one thing I'll say. And then the other thing truly is this like financial nihilism thing, this view that financial nihilism is, the way I define it in the post is that wealth inequality is the widest it's ever been, and it's getting wider. The American dream of upward mobility is less and less available to a smaller portion of Americans. And then the one stat that I always throw out is median home price to median income, because, you know, the home with the white picket fence with the dog is like such a part of the American dream. And when you look at the ratio of median home price to median income, it is at a completely untenable level. And so I think that that's a really good way to boil down financial nihilism. And so financial nihilism is a feeling, and that feeling produces actions. And the best way to describe the actions that are produced by financial nihilism is distortions in risk taking. Mm-hmm. It distorts risk taking. And so does the monetary and fiscal policies that the United States and other major central banks and governments are running. That also distorts. Those two things go hand in hand, right? Money printing, QE, insane deficits, and financial nihilism, these go hand in hand. And so I think you put those two things together, and that's how you get this attitude of this lack of pretense that any of this shit does anything or will ever do anything, but still looking for things to gamble on in crypto because now is a good time to be gambling on shit in crypto.
I guess the question that's been in my mind is, like, even if people ascribe to that belief, and I think some people probably ascribed to it a cycle ago or maybe even 2 cycles ago, but now it's everyone has caught up to none of this shit has really done anything yet, so might as well gamble on the most risky. I kind of wonder if, one, is crypto still the best casino? If people, they want to climb that ladder to increase their financial status, they want to move up in the world, they're turning to gambling. And as sad as it is to say, that's honestly been a real catalyst for crypto for the past 6 years. It just is. If you're young, you want to get ahead, what are you going to do? Buy stocks, wait 20 years? Maybe you beat inflation, maybe you don't. You probably do okay. People want it now. And so you can sports gamble. Your prospects aren't good. You can do a couple things, but crypto has been this growing pie where you can gamble here, and you're going to have some people that actually do well. And even if you don't do that well, you probably do okay. But now the game selection has gone from, I'm going to gamble on crypto doing real things, to I'm just going to straight up gamble on this coin because it launched yesterday. It has a ton of followers. This influencer bought it. It could go up 10x tomorrow. Since meme coins have taken that role, would you say that meme coins have been destructive, or was this, like, what's your assessment of what the hell we're all gambling on now?
Right. So one of the things I wrote in the lack of pretense piece, and one of the things that led me to the conclusion to write it, was that Bonk was the best performing crypto in 2023. I think Bonk was up 9,600% in 2023. And like, that's not the way the 4-year cycles were supposed to work. Like you think about 2019, alts were bleeding hard in 2019. 2019 was a year of Bitcoin maximalism rising again, right? And kind of come to Jesus moments around alts and just the lack of use cases, the lack of traction, that kind of thing. And so with seeing Bonk able to do what it did in 2023, I was looking at it and I was pretty close to it because I knew some guys that were very close to the project, very involved in the project. And I was kind of sitting there scratching my head going, what is causing people to be willing to throw money into this thing at this part of the cycle? And it felt very nihilistic to me, and I write these two pieces at the beginning of the year. And then obviously we have this like ridiculous run on meme coins, dog with hat, and the political coins, Joe Biden, and like all like Popcat and Giga Chad and like blah, 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 blah. And then you have the rise of pump.fun and the C-list celebrities coming in. And the whole situation devolved so rapidly that I think it actually, I don't know, like I'm not super high convicted. Like I'm not super high convicted about what memes as a category are going to do. Like I'll give you a hypothetical. Let's say Trump wins in November, Bitcoin rips, whatever. You fast forward to 6 months from now and Bitcoin's knocking on the door of 100K, ETH gets some legs underneath it. ETH goes back to all-time highs. Solana goes back to all-time highs. Like, it's like, are meme coins going to outperform like everything by a lot as a category in that scenario? I mean, some are going to, but there's so many that you're like, how do you pick the ones that are going to do that? It's like, is Doge going to outperform Solana? Is Shiba going to outperform? It's like, I don't know. I'll pose that as a question. What do you think in that scenario?
Yeah, I've just been shocked. I think I've been shocked by how many people have such high conviction in this idea that meme coins are the best game in town and will continue to be the best game in town. And before I answer that question of like which one will do well, it's that meme you see everywhere where like good times create good men create good times create weak men, right? And that actually kind of matches a 4-year cycle in a way. It's like we get pushed out on the risk curve, we get a little too over our skis, we bring it back, and then some real things have to emerge that people can believe in again. What seems to have broken is that we just went through and we're kind of at like the tail end of it now of meme coins having this insane explosion. It's all people are gambling on. Some of them went up 1,000, 1,000,000x. But now that we've been at this weak times thing, there's like a large percentage of the industry, and not just gamblers, but like funds and respected people that are saying, this is the game. This weak time that we're in, this weak market that we're in, these weak assets that we're in, that's the future. Like these things, it's going to continue to be. That's the best game in town. They're structured the best. You can get in cheap. They're going to continue to outperform. So that's been confusing to me. And as I look at, as you said, the number of these things now, right? We have like a few of them that are above $1 billion market cap. You have Doge that's up there, Bonk that's up there, Whiff that's outperformed. Man, I struggle to... I guess broadly, I struggle to believe that they will, there are always going to be one or two, right? There's going to be one outlier people complain to. They're going to be like, how'd you not believe in this? It's like, yeah, sure. People will always gamble on something. Doge is one of the few altcoins that surprisingly has outperformed almost each cycle, right? So I'm not saying they won't. But man, if you look at how many people these things brought in, despite how well they've done, they didn't bring in that many new people. It's kind of just us recycling money. And so, yeah, like... not that many new people came in. Maybe Bitcoin at 100K and ETH at all-time high does bring in new people. So you get some influx of new people, but the amount of coins launching is not going to slow down. That seems like it's only going to go up only. And now you have a few of these which are priced kind of where the assets that we've all agreed to not bid at are priced at, right? That's why DeFi and these things didn't pump. They're at billions of dollars market cap. People look at that and they say, crypto's a casino. I want to move up in the world. The real applications are worth a few billion. I don't know if that can go up too much. This meme coin's at 10 million. It can go up a lot. So meme coins have now gotten themselves in. They've backed themselves into a corner in a way due to their own success of being priced kind of how the other things are. The problem is, at least the other things have somewhat of a compelling story. If this works, even if it's a Hail Mary, financial system, this is the rails it's going to be built on, huge total addressable market in the future is going to be massive. When you look at a meme and say, this meme's worth a few billion, more people are going to come into crypto, they could also believe in this. It's like the main story of a meme coin is that a lot of people can get rich. And so if the starting point of a meme coin is not that many people can get that rich anymore, it runs out of headway in a bit, unless everything concentrates into one can outperform, but they can't all, even if the whole world onboards, it's like that, it ruins the narrative. It'd be like Uniswap being regulated away and people still saying, no, I think it can do well. It's like, no, that story's done, man. Like they just put a lid on it. And so there is some kind of lid, even though meme coins don't have a total, there isn't a revenue that can cap them. There is a cap in terms of how many people can get rich from buying it once it hits a certain valuation. And that's the problem that quite a few of them will face now. So that's a long way to say I have no fucking idea which one will outperform. I don't think it'll be the ones that are at $1 billion, simply because it's not because I don't believe that the meme is funny or that those things can keep doing well or they've done well from a strategy perspective. It's just the fact that there aren't that many people that can get rich from a coin once it's that high anymore, right? So I'm not sure either. It's a really fucking hard question.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what percentage of Pump.Fun participants have made money on Pump.Fun?
Did you see that number?
Yeah, I mean, is it 1%?
It's lower than 1%. I'll try to find the exact reference, but for people that missed it, it was one of the most telling. It kind of confirms what we've just been talking about, which is I think that there was this illusion that because meme coins went up, it was retail money coming, it was new people coming in to gamble on these things and everyone was getting rich. My thesis was, I think less people actually did well from meme coins than when VC coins were going up. And that's a huge narrative violation that some people will get mad about because yes, structurally, it is awesome that people can get into the ground floor. How that actually plays out is I think a smaller number, call them insiders, call them what you want, actually get in, right? When there's no rules, totally. People are going to bend the rules. Like your advantage then is playing in that gray area. And so I actually think a smaller number of people did well. The numbers came out, someone ran it, they did a Dune query and they looked at like the amount of wallets that made money. I think it was less than 10,000 people or so made like a couple $1,000.
Right.
Like, even if VC coins were launching at $1 billion market caps, there was a lot of fucking people that made a ton of money in 2017, 2019, 2020, 2021. When it's 10,000 people, guys, that's not like, I don't know, man. It's tough.
No, I completely agree with that. Yeah, if you for the people that are trying to call that the beginning of some like major structural trend, that's a really shitty start to a structural trend, right? 99% of people plus lose money that participate in this thing. People are just gonna go bet on football, dude. Yep. Like it's like you're just gonna go do a parlay. Right. It's more fun. At least you get to sit around with your boys, have a couple beers, and like see what happens. As opposed, it's just, it's tough. And the rise of Memecoin Mania at the beginning of this year, in my view, was a direct response to the lack of believability of venture-backed token projects that were coming out at the valuations they were coming out at. It's like they were coming out at valuations that were so high, and you do this, points to airdrop daisy chain thing, and you conjure up this fugazi enormous FDV market cap. And then you do an airdrop, and then you list the thing on a major exchange, and then you just dump into oblivion, basically. And there's just it goes back to the lack of pretense thing. The market is like collectively looking at the investment cases, and I would say I probably use that term pretty loosely, the pitch for like why whatever layer 2 or whatever modular component or, this, that, and the other should be worth, 5 billion plus FDV. And the market looks at that and they go, I'm not buying that. That's not attractive to me. And these meme coins, like, I'm just going to go play in this sandbox because, I don't know, it's more fun, or just like it gives me something to do. There's a lot of gambling, people that love to gamble that participate in the alts market. And it was also, I remember back in 21 in NFT summer, and the pitch that I heard about NFTs, which resonated with me, is it's like NFTs were removing the pretense that the tech matters in alts. Mm-hmm. Like the tech's a joke. It doesn't matter. And so let's just be honest about that. And so let's do JPEGs instead. And that was a pitch for NFTs that actually kind of resonated with me. And I think that meme coins are like this is another, variation of like that same kind of thing where people go, well, these projects that they're rolling out are completely unbelievable at the FDV that they're rolling out at. So it's like, let's just do this other thing that's just, at least we're calling a spade a spade.
I want to touch back again on those numbers. So there's 3 insane statistics that came about Pump.Fun. One of them, someone did an analysis and looked at, in the past 24 hours, he did this last month, 16,000 new meme coins were launched. Only 100 of them, 175 made it to Radium. So that means they made about 60K market cap. And then 19 of them within 24 hours capped above that 70K market cap, right? So 16,000 new tokens, that's 0.1% are actually staying above 60K in 24 hours, right? So that's one statistic, is these things are going up. They can't even stay at 50K market cap when you think about how insanely small it is. The other metric, how many people made money, right? It was like, 10,000 people had made a decent amount of money. I think it was smaller than 1,000 had even made 100 grand, or like good money here in crypto, if you could call it that.
And one thing I always want to point out about that, it's wallets, not people.
Sure,
which that is
sure.
That's an important delineation, because you're like, how many power users are running dozens, hundreds of wallets?
Sure.
But go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Small amount of people making money, insane amount of tokens being produced that aren't doing well. And then the third one was, I ran an analysis yesterday and looked at like when Pump Fund started, because I think we've done a bit of a revisionist history where people are kind of blending what's actually happened. If you look at the Solana price of when we topped, I think price was at 210 early this year, top for Solana this year. If you look at when Pump Fund launches started, it was March 14th. That's when we started having thousands of new coins hit the market. Solana topped March 18th, right? So Memecoin Mania started happening when Solana had its, like after its run. I think people have attributed, well, this cycle and Solana did so well because of meme coins, and meme coins went up and people made a ton of money. This actually all started kind of after everything had already gone up. So like this meme coin game that we've been playing, where people are apparently making absurd amounts of money and it's been great for retail, this basically happened when prices stopped going up. Everything has been going down since things got out of hand on the meme coin side of things, which is a really weird data point. And I think some people got upset from that and they said, oh, you're saying meme coins top the market. I'm not necessarily saying that. I do think there's a strong case to be made, though, that they didn't boost the market. I don't think it's the reason that we went up that people are attributing it to. Like, that's what people have been saying. This cycle's meme coins, they took over. That's what got people excited. That's how they made their money. No, this actually all started when things started going down. And so that's like a weird data point people have to contend with. I am not saying that Pump Fund's the reason that Solana stopped going up or the market topped. I don't think it's the reason that we went up, though, right? And that's something that people have to wrestle with. This was not a meme coin-driven market. That's just like the last game that people have clung on to. And lately, it's been a bad game, man. You're walking to the casino, that is like the rake is insanely high. Like you're playing against people that are just making hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, it's like, is this a bullish bear market that we're in right now? Or is this a very bearish bull market, right? Like how the hell does someone make sense of it when Bitcoin's done well, the prospects continue to look good. On the altcoin side of things, it's like we're out of games to play that look appealing.
It's a soul searching market. That's how I would characterize it. It's a soul searching market. Bitcoin completely separate. I've thought about it separately from everything else for years. I still think of it like that. In some ways, it's more separate than it's ever been now with the rise of the ETFs. And everything down market cap from Bitcoin is soul searching. It really is. And you try and get excited about some of these different pockets. I mean, I think DPIN's really cool. I think it's definitely one of the most exciting sectors in alts broadly, for sure. Being able to just get a modicum of real world traction, solving, providing a solution to real world problems that people are actually adopting. That's exciting. I worry about the token structures. I wrote about that in the first piece, in the lack of pretense piece. I am not sure that the token structures are sustainable. They I think are susceptible to blowing a big bubble and then collapsing massively, kind of the way that Axie Infinity did. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know, maybe we get, one of the things that I point out in this quiet quitting piece is, the hope that in a Trump administration that we can get a de facto regulatory framework or actual legislation that provides a regulatory framework that allows for some of these tokens to change their token structure so that they just accrue value in a more believable and sustainable manner. I'm hopeful for that. And I think that would matter for DPIN, but everything else is it's just soul searching. And it would be different if the market caps were 90% lower, right? If the aggregate alt market cap was 100 billion instead of a trillion, then at least, maybe it would just feel a little bit different, right? Because you would just be able to look at some of the absolute or relative dollar valuations and go, oh, that looks okay. But it's like some of these stuff, it's still so inflated that the market is just searching to understand how this stuff is going to go up a lot from here with the current investment case, the current value proposition, the current usage.
Right now, it's we're in the midst of It's So Over, and we're looking for the We're So Back moment. That's kind of what we're searching for. So thinking about that, I think there are actually a few crumbs of hope. We can call them that. And I want to get into your piece on what's happening right now, this quiet quitting. I want to propose two things to you, though. These ideas I've been trying to wrestle with. One of them is, I think there is a portion of the market that has kind of had this view on altcoins for a while. I know everyone kind of agrees right now of this is a gamble, might as well gamble on the riskiest thing. But even if people have known that that's kind of been the game, it actually still hasn't stopped. We've had two of pretty breakout, almost mainstream apps, you can call them, right? With Polymarket has fully reached mainstream. You have presidents talking about it. It's all over the mainstream news. They don't have a token, but that is 100%. It's beating the incumbents. That's just where people are able to bet on predictions. I think it could actually do quite well in sports betting. That's an app where I wouldn't even view it as a crypto app anymore. I think there's more non-crypto people that refer to Polymarket than even crypto people. Does that give you optimism, like that even though we're living through this financial nihilism, people have accepted this is all a gamble and meme coins are our shitty solution to how we should play the game? Does it give you optimism that despite that, we actually are still getting some apps that get built that can break through?
So on prediction markets, the two things I'll say is, one, I think you got to get on the other side of the election and just see, how well does Polymarket do in terms of, monthly active visitors and actual participants. And I think that remains to be seen. And if the optimistic, the bullish view, like if I was going to invest in the equity of Polymarket or something like that, and I was putting together the sort of bullish view for why I would do that, the bullish view would be that it would be an offshoot of financial nihilism. The bullish view would be people are just going to start betting on everything.
Yeah.
People are going to bet on everything. And you can look at the sports gambling statistics in the United States and you can see where this is going. You see it generationally, right? You see it in Gen Z, you see it in millennials relative to older generations. And that's going to continue. And so if you have the platform by which people bet on all manner of, it's like, this is a world where like 2 years from now, my wife is going to be betting on the outcome of Love Island or whatever, right? It's that world where people are just constantly wanting to put money on whatever. And there's good reason to think that we may trend in that direction. It's not something that makes me excited. It's not something that like gives me like warm fuzzies about like what I'm spending my time doing. I mean, I named my fund Ikigai, right? Like it wasn't like lip service that I named it Ikigai. Like I really named it that because I left traditional hedge fund investing because I believed in this technology's potential to make the world a better place. So like the devolution of like that ideal into Memecoin Mania and just relentless gambling, like that is sad to me. And that is, it's disappointing. It's not what I got in here to do. And if other people feel differently, like whatever, dude, so be it. Like live your life. But that's disappointing to me.
Even though that's where we are, there's this belief of like alt season, the only way it comes back where crypto gets exciting again is all altcoins have to bounce and do well for that to happen. In reality, if you look back, this has kind of happened in a way every cycle where we usually only get one group of alts that starts to outperform. We get one narrative that kind of brings us out of the wreckage, and that's actually all we need. That's what people call an alt season, and it feels like all altcoins are going up. In reality, it's usually a handful. It's like 15 or 20 of them, right? So if you look back at 2017, 2018, there's things like EOS, Cardano, Ripple, Stellar Lumen, ZC. I mean, they're going down for now 7 years straight, but that didn't stop us from having Solana and pockets of altcoins which do well, which people say that was alt season, right? Solana going from $5 to $200. That's insane. And it brings with it a group of other altcoins. I'm kind of thinking about it as we really don't need all altcoins to go up again. Most of them will die. That's part of a healthy cycle. It's what allows that old capital to rotate into these things. We really only need like one narrative or like one group of these things, which kind of brings back hope. How do you think about that? Like that is, in my opinion, maybe it's a redefinition of alt season. I don't think we need a ton of them to go up. I think most of them should go down, but we do need a couple of leaders. How do you think about that?
Yeah, a couple things I'll say to that. I came up with this like little catchphrase last year: reckless lending intertwined with fraud, used to heavily lever long, speculating on vaporware. So like that's like a concept, right? That's like a dominant market structure feature of the prior cycle, right? You had tons of borrow lending that had a lot of fraud in it, Mashinsky, that whole thing. Also just sort of reckless lending, BlockFi, Genesis, these types of things. But that did allow for turns of leverage to come into the system. And then all kinds of, I would say price manipulation kind of stuff at Sam Bankman-Fried, Alameda, all kinds of different things, Three Arrows Capital, like all. So you had this big movement through that drove a ton of price action, drove a ton of market cap increase. And the very large majority of that has been removed from this market. Like, as far as I know, you cannot get uncollateralized borrow in the crypto market right now, like basically regardless of who you are. It's like not available anymore. And so I think part of like what we're seeing is a market where that feature is absent, but we were used to it in the prior cycle, right? And so you're sort of waiting for the turns of leverage and the
infinite bid.
Yeah, that's right. The infinite bid and all the fraudulent stuff. And it's not here, which is a good thing, but it's keeping alts so much subdued. And then the other thing I'll say is like sort of my guess on how this might play out in the coming months and moving into 25. The election is going to matter a ton. If Kamala wins, that feels like a down 20 to 30% in BTC to me. Kind of depends on obviously where it is right before the election. But let's say it's kind of near the top of the range going into the election, which is kind of where I think it's going to be. Kamala wins, that's probably all the way down to the bottom of the range for BTC. Maybe you sweep the lows of BTC. I think that's probably a down 40 or 50 for alts. And I think BTC will probably bounce a lot harder than alts and probably a lot quicker than alts. I think there's going to be so that's the Kamala outcome. For the Trump outcome, if we're trading top of the range for BTC, Trump wins. That feels like a God candle up into the low 80s. And then, we grind low 80s up towards 100 over, a number of weeks or months thereafter. And then my guess is there's probably, some kind of big battle at 100K that's going to take a while to chew through. And I would guess that in that scenario, again, none of this is financial advice and I'm wrong often. But my guess is alts will get a big pop initially from that. But one of the defining features of this alts market is a lack of inflows. You're not getting significant inflows really from any direction that you might get them into alts. And the waterfall that we were used to in prior cycles where BTC runs, then ETH runs, and then there's profit taking and movement out into the further into the risk spectrum. Because the ETF inflows drove BTC's price action, there's not that waterfall. You're not seeing that waterfall out into the risk spectrum from BTC. And so that's leaving alts like isolated without inflows. I know, I run a crypto fund, a liquid focused crypto hedge fund. I know a number of other people that run liquid focused crypto hedge funds. Liquid focused crypto hedge funds are not seeing significant inflows right now. They're just not. And there's not an expectation that like there's a big wave of capital that's about to come into alts. And alts are getting demolished by token unlocks, right? And so you have this like big overwhelming component to that. And so I think my guess is if Trump wins, what you will need to see happen for sustainability is you'll have a big short-term pump in alts broadly, I think. And that'll just come from kind of crypto native capital and some of the kind of fast money capital that's on the sidelines that realizes that's a good trade. They come in. But to continue that into like an actual bullish cycle for alts, to your point, we're going to have to get a use case that gets significant traction, some sector or idea that is at least reasonably buyable, that it attracts significant external inflows into alts, right? DeFi summer was that in 2020. NFT summer was that. The alt L1 wars, we had some of that. Now, again, you had all of the reckless lending and the fraud and stuff that was also driving that at the same time and juicing that reflexivity, which we probably don't have this time. But I think it really will be almost like a put up or shut up kind of thing outside of probably a relatively short bubble, because you're just going to need, this shit's worth too much. The market cap is too high for crypto native capital to just be able to sufficiently really pump alts harder. You just got to get a lot more inflows, and the types of the people that are the institutions, the entities that are holding the purse strings that could push hundreds of millions of dollars into the liquid alt market, they're not convinced of these narratives right now, and these use cases. And so it's really going to be an impetus of the crypto market to produce something like that. And so then the last thing I'll say, or I'll just push the question back to you, which sector is that going to be? Which sector is going to be the sector that is the DeFi summer, the NFT summer that drives like so much of that capital? Like, is it going to be AI? Is it going to be gaming? Is it going to be DePIN? Is it going to be liquid restaking tokens? Like, what is it going to be?
Yeah, we need something to believe in. We need something to believe in. I think, it makes me think, like, if we would have had one of those narratives that was so big last cycle was this L1 trade, right? If ETH goes up, ETH competitors, which are priced relative to ETH, should also go up. And it's this belief. You got enough big money relative to crypto that believed in it. It was like, oh man, if that's what they're buying, that is a compelling story. Man, if ETH goes to 10K, Solana could be worth X. And if Solana's worth X, well, the thing that is a better Solana could be worth X. I actually wonder if we had the L1 trade, like, but with our mindset now, this nihilism, which has swept over the industry, I wonder if people would have even believed it. I wonder if that trade would have been able to exist back then. Like, if that narrative would have popped up, I think most of Twitter would have been, it's just VCs trying to dump on you, don't buy their bags. Like, I think with our current mindset, we would have killed all the previous narratives. Like the L1 trade, which was able to persist for 3 months, 6 months, where you could just long Solana, Luna, AVAX, any L1 on any 20% dip, you could just long it because it was a compelling story. ETH is going up. Dude, if these things can compete with ETH and even take 10% of the market share, that's huge. They can go up too. Yeah. I actually wonder if people's mindsets now, which is VCs are bad, their tokens are bad, we have to play our own game. The dog with the red shoes has to go up faster. I wonder if we just would have killed it. Like, I don't even know if we would have allowed that narrative to exist. Thinking about that, so like, yeah, we have in a way gotten too big for our own good in some of these alts. It's like our money can't push it, and the money that can move it has to believe in something. It can't be. Maybe some liquid funds dabble in meme coins. Most of them won't. That money, in order for them to believe in something, I guess it could be AI, looking at the real world, what can get completely out of whack. You look at NVIDIA, it's priced kind of like Microsoft was at the tech bubble. So there is an appetite for that, whether or not it's right or wrong. There is an appetite to push AI to ridiculous levels, to absurd levels. I think AI crypto could do that. Even if the sole reason is because people can't value AI, people sure as hell won't be able to value crypto AI, right? So that could be a narrative where it goes. That's like a feature, not a bug, by the way. That isn't something you look at and say, how the hell do we value this? That's bad. No, that's really fucking good. You do not want people to be able to say, you don't want them to tie it down to revenue, right? So that's actually a sector which still does have the excitement of, I don't know how the hell to value this thing, right? It is kind of, in a way, the previous L1. How do you value Solana versus ETH? Is it a probability that takes over? Are we going to live in in the future, 10 years in the future, we're going to have ETH is worth a lot and Solana is worth a lot? Or one of them? That was a question that we didn't know how to answer and still don't. And I think crypto AI now has that feature. Whenever we have a question that we don't know how to answer, that's a feature. How the hell do you value AI? I don't know. How do you value crypto AI? Probably higher than AI? I don't know. Right? Like, that's a good thing. So I think crypto AI could be that.
Sorry, just to hold your feet to the fire for a second, can you give me a specific name within crypto AI?
No. And once again, I actually think that's a feature. Like, no, I don't know. Because in itself, it has that question of like, how does crypto even work with AI? Is it going to be the decentralized compute? Is it going to be the decentralized model and how we're crowdsourced? Is it just going to be uncensored? That's what people find attractive of. They can't tamp down what the model is telling you. Like, there's a couple stories there which are hard to answer. So I don't know. I think that it's probably the easiest one to wrap your head around is the decentralized compute of, like, it can be the decentralized NVIDIA that's just closest to the one that's doing well. Yeah, I don't know. You look at some of the other ones. You have brilliant people like Eric Wohl saying BitTensor is a scam, and at the same in the same breath, you can scroll down the timeline. You also have one of the best research shop, Delphi, and they've done a ton of research into this. And Tom and Neil and those guys are bullish as hell on things like BitTensor and some of those ideas. So I'm not smart enough to figure out which one of those two are right.
BitTensor is definitely a polarizing one. I agree with that. Yeah, there's smart folks on both sides of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, I don't think that's a problem for crypto. I think it actually rides that. I think that's a great fucking narrative of no one knows. And that's been a big component of like which sector has done well in the past always. I actually think that's kind of why DeFi topped out, is because you could say, oh, that thing makes how much revenue? Okay, we can value it around here, right? That's just how much money they're making. That's how much TVL. That's kind of how exciting it should be. With L1s, you really couldn't do that. Like you can't, what are you going to value it on block space? Is it digital oil? Is it how many apps are going to be built? And so they had this kind of uncapped. There was nothing that people could take profits. And you could always say, man, you're taking profits too early. It's like, yeah, you're probably right. This could be huge. And I think crypto AI is one of the only ideas that has that in the legitimate crypto space, quote unquote legitimate, right? That's a big asterisk there. Outside of that, gaming's tough. I don't know. I love Axie, but even in the traditional gaming world, Call of Duty does well for a year or two, and then it doesn't. Right? Games live and they die. So gaming can be exciting, but I look at some of the shit being built that have raised $500 million and they still don't have a game. That's a problem. So I don't know. Gaming, I'm probably more pessimistic on. I think crypto AI is kind of like I would say it's the best horse to bet on in terms of like what can attract institutional flows that still has the question mark and is still hard enough for us to figure out what the hell it is. That's good. But yeah, man, it feels like, the UFC before they did drug testing, you had Vitor Belfort on the TRT and he's like huge. Alistair Overeem, these dudes used to be monsters. Yeah. You look at them now 4 or 5 years later and they're like, they could be fighting middleweight. I mean, they're still huge, right? They could walk down the street and kill anyone. But comparatively, they're off the juice.
That's a great comparison.
They're not the same thing. Crypto is the UFC after USADA. We are drug testing crypto now, basically.
That is a great comparison.
We used to be able to pump it up, TRT. Lending, sure. FTX, throwing out VC everywhere. You had Circle, you had all these things. That doesn't exist anymore. We're off the TRT. So how far can we get naturally, right? We need real flows, and we need a real narrative. We don't have the juice anymore. That's where we're at.
It's a great comparison. Yeah.
What made me reach out to you again? Your first two theses, I think, have been the most accurate, and I think whether or not people read them, they sure as hell kind of believe in it or have accepted it at this point. The nihilism that swept over how the cycle has played out. Meme coins are the only thing that did well, and we're scratching our heads as to what happens next. You wrote about this concept of pervasive quiet quitting. That's what crypto is going through, which is weird to say. Crypto is an industry where almost none of us have jobs, but we're still experiencing quiet quitting. What do you mean by that? Like, what's happening right now?
Yeah, again, it's why it was in line with the first two pieces. It's an extension of those two pieces, but I wrote it because I was just witnessing something with such a frequency that it looked like a trend. I was just hearing from a lot of different people that I talked to that people were just way less enthused, way less involved, spending less time, way less of a believer this cycle than at any point in the prior 6-7 years that I've been involved in this. And I was hearing that from numerous different places and feeling some of that myself as well too, personally feeling some of that. And it's happened for all the reasons that we've been talking about for the last hour or whatever. And people won't leave entirely. I mean, some people did leave entirely. Yeah. Lots of people just left entirely. A lot of people went to AI. A lot of people just went to traditional VC investing, just various different things. But I think what you end up having is a situation where, for a few different reasons, people don't want to leave entirely. So they just keep one eye on crypto. They kind of have one foot in crypto. And then they're just doing other stuff with their life, whatever that may be. And that is, a lot of people feel that way in crypto now. And it's enough people that it is like one of the defining features right now of the crypto market is that like so many of the market participants are so less enthused about this whole thing than in years prior. And the comparison I make is like imagine like quiet quitting, like in the traditionally used sense, right? Like at a regular company where millennials and Gen Z are just not going to kill themselves. And they don't want to go above and beyond. They're not being rewarded to go above and beyond. They don't believe in the mission enough to go above and beyond. So they just do the bare minimum. And then they're like constantly trying to figure out how to do less without getting fired. That's quiet quitting, like in the traditional sense, right? And for a company that is experiencing quiet quitting, this is a death knell. This is a ambitious CEO's worst nightmare to have this in its culture because it's contagious and it's poisonous. And I think that the quiet quitting that we're seeing in crypto right now is contagious and poisonous to this thing. And it's concerning. And I was seeing it with such a frequency that I just felt the need to talk about it. And it immediately went viral. I've had, I don't know, 24 people at least reach out to me. I put the tweet thread out yesterday. It's like, This was another thing that like really captured people's feelings. So
you joke that like this is usually a convo. That's a tweet. That's an idea that usually happens at bottoms, right? People point to stuff like this and they say, everyone's lost hope. I hope people can look at this episode and say, dude, that's when alt started. They said there was nothing else to look forward to. And that's when we started pumping. I hope that happens. I am remaining like in the depths of this where we have nihilism that swept over. We're looking for that crumb of what's the thing we can believe in again. I think you nailed it in that a regulatory change, whether it's a Trump win, whether it's Gensler out of office, whether it's we open the floodgates again of experimentation. And I think for the past 6 years, we've kind of put a cap on that of like, I actually don't even think we created meme coins because it's what people wanted. I think a lot of projects were forced by the SEC to say, we actually aren't allowed to give you guys any value. So we're going to explicitly create a token which is valueless. And now we've skipped a couple steps and we've said, screw even saying we're building anything. This is 100% valueless. I think if we can once again open the floodgates of experimentation and say, no, we're going to create a decentralized system, whether it's an exchange, whether it's an AMM, some of these ideas we've already done, some of them in DeFi, but we can open the ideas and say, this is what this allows for. We've had a hamper on that of what we're allowed to do here in the US. So maybe it is a Trump win. I don't know what leads to that, but we need not only something to believe in, but just the experimentation kind of floodgates to open again. I think that could be a big unlock there too.
Yeah, I agree with it. That's why I specifically mentioned it. It's like far and away the most likely avenue that I can see that can like pull us out of this malaise, basically. Yeah. And I hope I'm not being overly optimistic. I had a few people respond. I don't think there's like a ton of Kamala voters in crypto. It's a very small minority, I think. I had a few people respond to me and say, you're kidding yourself that like a Trump win is like as bullish and positive as you think it is. He's a grifter. He's grifting now, and he's not going to do anything for crypto. It's really not my base case. I really do not think that's true. Especially with some of the people that he has around him, JD Vance, Vivek. I think some of the expectations about who he would put in as SEC chair, CFTC chair, Secretary of State, OCC, there's probably 24 or so other like lesser appointees that still have a significant impact on the crypto ecosystem. And I just get the sense that he's not going to put any or hardly any, if any at all, like just outward crypto antagonists into positions like that. And I think that should be greatly beneficial for crypto. There's some chance that maybe I'm wrong about that. And maybe it is a grift and he's just lying and he's going to screw over crypto or not help us out. But I don't know. It's definitely not my base case. And I feel pretty convicted about that. So
I do as well. Yeah, I need to have a conversation with Nick Carter. He's been one of the best at kind of breaking down the actual differences, steel manning both sides of what would happen in a Kamala victory versus a Trump victory. It's a convo I need to have, but it's a big question, man. It's why your thesis here, your write-ups caught everyone's attention, whether or not they read them, whether or not they saw them. I know they're feeling it. I am. You are. I think everyone else is, and it's a big head scratching moment. At the very least, this convo, I hope that there's a potential this could mark the sentiment bottom. This is one of those the inverse things that people do. It's so over. Like they almost bear post on purpose. At the very least, maybe this episode does that for people, but I'm not sure, man.
I hate to be so bearish. And I'm not bearish on Bitcoin. I'm really not. Bitcoin is transcended. It's not that Bitcoin doesn't have risks associated to it. It does have risks associated to it, but the types of risks that Bitcoin has are nothing like the risks that every other crypto asset has. It's just a different set of risk factors around Bitcoin, and Bitcoin could fail or it could become obsolete, but it's like the risk of that would be like the same risk as like Meta becoming obsolete. Meta could become obsolete, like it could. That's a risk. That's a different type of risk than Ethereum becoming obsolete or Solana becoming obsolete. It's a totally different ballpark of risks and factors that go into those risks. And to me, Bitcoin risks feel now more like Google risk, Meta risk, Amazon risk. It's something more like that in my view. And I still definitely believe in Bitcoin. And all this other stuff is still, I think, one big experimentation. And the part of the reason that I write these things is like as a call to action, right? Like it's like this ecosystem is made up of individuals, and the eventual outcome of what this ecosystem produces is a function of the individuals that are working on these various things. That's it. It's a bunch of people doing a bunch of different things in crypto, and whatever ends up happening is going to be a function of the work of those people. And so it's like when I see some of these things, I'm hopeful that like there's people that read them and then they get motivated to do something different. Or, I think that I wrote about this a lot last year. There's like a social structure issue. We have like a self-regulatory issue in crypto. Bad actors are attracted to crypto like a moth to a flame. Right. And we have just seen example after example of bad actors that gain enormous power and influence in this ecosystem and then just absolutely fuck us terribly. And we pay the price for it as an ecosystem because we allowed them to get into a position like that. And in some ways, even though we're close to 2 years now after the collapse of FTX, we're 2 years after 3AC, we're 2 years after BlockFi, Celsius, Luna, we're like 2 years onto that. But in some ways, we are still in the aftermath of that. Yep. We're still in the hangover of that. We're still in the soul searching from that. And there is a leadership vacuum in crypto right now where you haven't had like the next generation of the biggest voices, the most influential actors and entities in the space. There's still like a vacuum there. And I think it remains to be seen sort of like who steps up into that and like what the quality of those individuals are, what their vision for this ecosystem is. I can tell you one thing, and I don't mean to pick on anybody in particular. Ansem is not going to lead us to the promised land. Ansem is not like, it's like that. Ansem's rise into main character status is like Mad Max. It's like a dystopian hellscape. And then this is like the leader in this dystopian hellscape, pushing people into just unbelievable dog shit, right? And so like, we're going to have to do better than that, or quiet quitting is just going to get worse, right? So
I guess I think the reason that I remain optimistic is a lot of the trends that we point to of why we're here, the gambling up only, the nihilism up only, the money print, like the bad actors that attracts. We kind of blend that all together, and I don't know how the hell it happens here in crypto, but we put all these kind of bad ingredients together. Somehow, dude, we keep pulling the rabbit out of a hat. We keep even if it takes 3 or 4 years in between each time, we put that all in a melting pot, and someone is, through sheer will or through enough money, or we figure out how to get juice again, right? We get UFC stops using USADA. We somehow pull it out of the hat, and that's kind of what I'm looking to, whether it's crypto AI, whether it's one token, whether it's Solana reaching new all-time highs and challenging ETH in a major way, whether it's the regulatory regime opens up experimentation. I'm not sure, but I do think it'll be one of those. But as you said, man, I don't think anyone in crypto has hit the nail on the head as accurately with your thesis as you have. So
there's still a tremendous opportunity for all of our ails. It's almost amazing, actually.
Right.
It's actually amazing that for all of our ails, for all of our missteps, for all of the bullshit, that crypto is still important. It's still big. It's still headline. It has become a huge part of this presidential election. It's like, despite all of that, crypto is still in this like major league seat. And that is an enormous opportunity. It's a huge opportunity. It's incredible. It's like, in some ways I feel like for as much as we've screwed up over the last however many years, that it's like, you wouldn't think we would still have a chance as good of the chance that we have. It's amazing. And it does give me hope. And it almost gives me almost like a feeling like is it destiny? Like, is there like a destiny component to crypto that like in decentralization, that the world actually needs this enough that we can screw up this bad and still be in a driver's seat? And I think that's like probably a great thing to end on with this, actually. Yeah.
Travis, appreciate you coming on to break this down, man.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. I enjoyed it.
Cheers, brother. Talk soon.